Hello and welcome to issue 7. I'm jumping in while Miles is drinking to give him no chance of looking professional at the start. Let's not beat around it, Miles. We're not trying to do this in a professional way.
No,
But,
no, we're not. We are not professionals.
Yeah, but this is Miles, who is a professional, just not at this.
Yeah, evidently.
Clearly. And today we're going to be going over the new things in the hobby for this week. So that's both 30k and the Darkoth Savages and our thoughts on those. What we've been doing within the week since last week, as well as our top 10 favourite models produced. Oh, it's by Games Workshop, right? Of all time.
Yes, yeah, that's the caveat. We wanted to do sort of like one of those terrible clickbaity YouTube videos, like top 10 whatever, top 10 Citadel miniatures ever released. So me and Max, we've been arguing throughout the week, and we've come up with a hodgepodge, a jumble of our top favorite sculpts, and they may not be the best quality sculpts, but they are our favorite sculpts, and there's a very particular distinction between those, which we will discuss during the segment.
Yeah. So, without further ado, let's go on to hobby news. So, Heresy Thursday this week brought us Shadrach Medusan. So, Shadrach Medusan on Heresy Thursday. What can we say about Shadrach, do you reckon? As a model, I think it falls into the category that we've said at the last couple of Heresy Praetors. For me,
yeah,
at least.
it's a solid release. It's a solid release. It's nothing like overly inspired. I like the paint scheme. I really like that brushed metal black that they've done. I know it's not the classic Matty Kane version of it where you put the green and the purple and then you put the Tamiya clears over the top. But I dare say that scheme would be a lot easier to achieve. I really like the way that armor has been painted. I think it would benefit from it not being blasted with light, because I know a lot of the Games Workshop photography, they want to show off a product, right? So they hit it with as much light as they can to show off the miniature. I think seeing this in a more natural environment will give a much better feeling of the paint job. I think it's the first Marine that we've seen with a squinting eye, as if he's taking aim.
Yeah, well, that was what I was going to say, actually, was it's actually a distinctive face doing a different pose or action than just like, or...
Yeah.
Like, you know, most of the faces that we get are either or and this is aiming.
You're either stoic or enraged.
Yeah, like I'm not massive on the hair. I know. Talking about the hairstyle of the model, I don't think fits the artwork for Shadrach Medusan other than the new piece of artwork that's been released. I think as a base for conversions, good, but it just doesn't fully fit Shadrach Medusan. I've seen
It's weird, right? You got such iconic artwork for this character on the front cover of, oh God, I can't remember the name of the book. I think it was like an anthology series. You got such like an iconic piece of artwork. Why not capitalize on your own IP, on your own artwork, on your own? Yeah. Again, it just feels like it's good, but it could have been so much better. Especially when you compare it to third-party producers who have made miniatures based on the artwork. And so if I was presented with a third-party sculpt, I think it was made by Company of Bitter Iron, and this, I would say that the third party is Shadrach Medusan. I'd recognize them a lot more than this. It's not, you know what the problem is? It's not iconic. A student mentioned this a couple of days ago about the Tybalt Mars sculpt. The problem is that it's not a bad sculpt. It's just, it could be any Space Marine character.
Yes.
I mean, which I think we'll see next with the artwork that has been loaded up into deck 2.
Oh, have I got artwork in deck 2?
Yeah, with the Iron Hands.
The Iron Warrior.
Iron Warriors. Iron Warriors.
Well,
yes.
and I think it's one of the things that fits this thing. It doesn't scream Shadrach Medusan because it's one of these, as you say, generic poses. It doesn't even fit the rules. Do you know, like the pose is a static shooting pose versus a very aggressive pose, and the rules about Shadrach Medusan and his background are all very aggressive. Like he gives +1 strength to the army or furious charge for 1 turn, and that would lend itself to like charging into battle, like the art. In fact, do you know what? Let's not describe the artworks. So here we go. We've got the novel Medusan, and it's a very aggressive pose, right? Well, he's just so obvious it hurts, and that's why we didn't get it. And this is the iconic sort of pose versus the very static bolter shooting pose. And as you say, I suppose we could rag on the model that it's not in this pose. It's a pretty solid model. It's a good base for conversions, which is what we wanted to highlight here.
Yeah, that's it. I think it will make a cracking Iron Warrior. I think it will make a cracking, like a Pollux type of miniature, which only realizing now I should have put in my top 10 list. But anyway, damn, missed opportunity. You can't criticize it for it not being what you want it to be. It is a solid miniature. It's a solid rendition of Medusa.
Yeah, right. Well, let's move on to the second, like, worthwhile.
Yeah, let's fawn over something. Let's absolutely. With our old world, like, I'm loving all these old world releases, and I've been thinking, oh God, how do I make my Marauder unit stand out? I don't want static poses. The last thing I want is to produce. So one thing I hate about the old Chaos Warrior kit, you have a shield and a sword, and they're all in the same pose. I don't want to paint 30 of those. I'd rather paint 30 of them in like different poses.
Yeah.
And I've been scratching around trying to find a coherent look for my Marauder unit. I mean, you have the Warcry stuff, but they're all slightly different bands. So I was thinking of like doubling up on like the Dark Oath or the Spire Tyrants.
Yes.
And then this dropped. Oh my God! Thank the Lord! What an amazing box set. I mean, what do you think about this, being the Hun lover that you are?
No, I think it's really good. So just pulling up the Warriors, I think they're brilliant sculpts. They're going to be a good base for expanding my Marauders into the foot troops of the Horde. And it's hard to criticize. They've got those varied. They've got the varied poses, but I'm sure they will rank up when they're on the 25s.
Yeah. They'd be fine.
Incredible.
They'd be fine. Those Marauder Horsemen look so. I mean, they look like Dothraki Screamers.
So the Horseman is different. I did. Go on. You go. You go.
Oh, right. Okay. So I haven't got quite the same kind of like level of education when it comes to like the visuals that you've delved into with your own Chaos Army. For me, they look like the Dothraki Screamers from Lord of the Rings. Holy hell! But
same.
College Below.
Same.
Yeah, it's the same thing. It's a fancy universe from A Song of Ice and Fire. But I just with these new sculpts, I love the movement of them. I love the energy of them. It just, as individual sculpts, they just look fun to paint.
Yeah, I agree with the riders and the horses, like body and tail. However, the heads of these horses are like really weirdly small.
Oh, right.
And,
hold on.
Like sort of, they look like forest ponies heads wise, but then this big chunky Shire horse for the body, and the knees of the horses are sort of like Michelin man tubes, and it's something that I'm probably going to ignore and just get them anyway. But yeah, there's just something odd about the sculpting of these horses.
Do you know the first time I saw them was like the really bad grainy images, and I haven't really looked at them since. Hold on.
Well, they're just a bit odd. The riders, the focal points of the models are really good. Do you know, like
Yeah.
even the skins coming off them, the poses of the
Uh-huh.
riders. But when you really look at the heads and the legs, it's like, what is going on there? Is that someone that's never left the city and never seen like a cow or a horse in real life?
Or it might be somebody who scanned a horse, like the dimensions of a horse, and when you translate them into that scale, that's what it looks like, rather than the over-exaggerated sculpts that we're used to.
Oh man, the horses' heads are bigger than that. Horses' heads are huge.
I'm doing a video on how to paint horses this weekend.
Are you?
Yeah, and it depends on what kind of horse we're dealing with.
Right.
Uh,
Well, it's
Pictures
let's.
of horses on YouTube. Right, okay, so this is a picture of a horse.
Oh, I was doing exactly the same thing and pulling it up on the full screen. Yeah.
So that has a pretty short snout.
Yeah, I suppose it's
Because I think we used to
that
we
looks
used
like a fairly small horse though. Whereas say
yeah
this is terrible because we're both looking at different pictures. If you Google
yeah
Shire horse, because these are like the big horses
okay,
that you would imagine as like a chaos steed, or like that
I
I
put
would
in
imagine
shite
as a
horse,
chaos steed.
Shire horse.
Yeah, look at the size of those
But
heads, and
but
the
oh yeah,
the
look at the
knees
size of something
don't
else as well. Let me get a different image.
the knees don't bulge in
But
the same way as these.
are Shire horses used for battle?
No, no, but like destriers that would be like the battle. We don't really have battle horses anymore, do we? Whereas,
I really don't know. So
yeah,
this is the first image of a destrier. Do you think they were going for more the oh god
but the knees just aren't. The knees are still slender rather than these
do you think they're going
bulging.
for like the smaller Mongolian horse to make them more mobile over the waists, need less feed? I'm just trying to justify the dimensions of this fantasy horse.
No, he's just something that stood out to me like when I was looking at it. Is
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
No, I agree. We're not used to seeing the dimensions of horse on this scale. Yeah, I do agree. Like there's something off about the snouts. Um, whether that's like a perception thing or whether they go for like a different
Do you know
type of
what?
horse that they wanted to sculpt.
When the box arrives at my house, because I'm still going to get them, and these will
Mm-hmm.
still be included in my army.
Mm-hmm.
We will see that we'll come back to this topic. I think horse, or maybe
Okay.
that could be another episode. Horses in
What
wargaming.
was the name of the study of some of these heads? Like phenology? When you study the dimensions of some of these skulls to see if they're like a psychopath or whether they like
Oh, I don't know.
excessively. Yeah, perhaps we should name the episode that like equine phenology.
Yeah, yeah, we'll do, and we'll come back to that and do that. I think that is, yeah, good. It's a
The
good plan.
demon thing looks nice. The demon thing
Yes.
has an appropriately sized snout.
Well, it does. I think it'd be really good for either a chaos spawn or even if someone's doing a really devolved demon prince, it could be good for that.
Yeah.
Like,
It could even be a unit filler if you're doing a big unit of marauders.
yeah, and it's hard to
Yeah.
complain about. You can't not that we want to complain, but it's a fantasy model. It looks really menacing. I want to see it in a different color scheme and a different painting style,
Mm,
but
right.
as it is, I like it anyway. Like, yeah, really good.
Do these come? So the marauders, they come with hand weapons instead of spears, or they all?
Oh, who cares? Shit,
Oh,
spears are well good.
it looks like you can have them with swords and axes as well, which is good.
Yeah, I think it'll
I
be
just
user
like the.
conversion as well to change those to from spears to.
I think with marauders, I prefer the visual of them having swords and axes rather than spears.
Ah, I actually really like spears just as a thing. It's
We're
personal
just two
taste, I
different.
suppose, isn't it?
We're just two different people, aren't we? I like horses with small snouts and marauders with axes.
Yeah, it's well, I suppose it is what it is. What it is. It's good to have differing opinions rather than just solidly agreeing with each other for an hour and a half.
Tomato.
So, shall we go on?
You don't know where to go from there, do you?
No.
How do we leap into?
Well,
how do you bridge into the next segment? You
Well,
painted the dwarf.
yeah, I painted.
You painted the dwarf.
I was meant to be painting Bretonians,
Mhm.
and spent. It
You
was
even
only a
asked
couple
me.
of days.
You
Yeah.
even asked me in the Discord, like, should I keep on with Bretonians or should I paint this dwarf that I really want to paint? And I keep encouraging my students. It's so easy to be led astray. It's so easy to go off piste and then go into another project and never come back to the original. No, you need to monofocus. You need to lock into a project. Even if you do a little bit at a time, that's how progress is made. And with that sage advice, what did you do? You went
Painted a
completely
dwarf.
the different opposite direction and painted the dwarf.
So I think maybe I didn't communicate it clearly enough. I was only ever intending to paint this one dwarf. It was never going to be like a full army that I was going to end up painting. So I've still got
that conversation
right here my next unit for this month for the HobbyHammer Slow Grow. So they are ready to be painted. They're undercoated, base coated. But I just wanted to do something just a bit refreshing, and I'd been watching skin videos, so wanted to just that sounds like a different thing than I meant. I've been watching videos on how to paint skin, so just wanted to give it a go. And do you know what? Completely failed, but I'm quite happy with it, but I didn't get out exactly what I wanted from it. So I think next month I may also do another Slayer or something with
This is how it
skin on.
starts. This is how it starts, the fracture. No, it is a very nice. I like the color scheme you chose, the turquoise of the head. It works really well with the red of the beard. And then you got the tattoos as well. I think it all works together.
Yeah, and that came from you've been saying about color wheels. So I went out and bought a color wheel.
Oh, you bought a color wheel? Oh,
Yeah,
actually,
because I do listen to you sometimes.
I can give you a bit of advice on the skin and contrast and all that. Just a few little pointers. So with dwarf skin, I always like it having a slightly more redder, ruddier color to it. So to deepen the shadows, you can go on the opposite side of the color wheel. So where is my color wheel? Oh, for shame.
Right.
It's not at...
Right, so we pulled up a color wheel because, as we said last week, this is a visual medium for us to be describing.
It's insane just to be... Yeah, so we have a color wheel up in front of us. Dwarf skin, I like keeping it around the orange, reddier tones. Very saturated, very big, very... I always like to think of dwarves with very high blood pressure. So I make my skin tone, my base tone, very saturated at base, almost slightly more on the orange side, where he looks like he's had put too much fake tan on. Now, there are a few ways you could go about developing the shadows of the skin. We could follow along a linear path and just use brown. So we can use darker brown into it, keep getting darker, darker, darker. Or we can do that and we can spice things up a little bit and we can use green. So when we look at the color wheel again, we can use a blue-green, which sits at the opposite end of the color wheel, as a very faint glaze to define the muscle structure. And once you do that, you're going to end up with a really weird-looking miniature. And if you leave it like that, it's going to be a big disappointment. You're going to hate yourself for doing it. But the key after that, I found, is adding a filter layer. So there's an extremely thin layer of paint over the top. And I really love using Rhinox hide for this, but I use Rhinox hide as a base. And I mix it with other things. So with a dwarf, for example, I'd look to put maybe a little bit more of a deep red from scale 75 into it, or a corn red into it, just to make it slightly warmer. But if you're a little unsure of mixing and matching colors, and especially at this early stage, if you are a little bit unsure of creating these kind of filter layers, Guilliman Flesh is excellent for this. So after you've put your very, very faint green to define the muscle structure, hit the entire thing with Guilliman Flesh. Thin application of paint, drag it into the shadows. It might take a couple of layers, but what you'll see with the green is that it fades away and it creates, I don't really know how to describe it, like this, a more natural, darker skin that doesn't rob it of its potency. If you use a dark brown, more often than not, they use a little bit of black in the mixture. Whenever you add black, robs of potency. But if you use the color on the opposite side of the color wheel, you could do some pretty freaky things with it. So just to trial this, because I know it's hard getting the right kind of dilution. A lot of students, when they do this at first, the green is too thick. Try it in between the fingers first, because the dwarf sculpts often have like really, really big, thick hands. So just put a little bit of green in between, and then add the Gilman flesh over the top, and then redefine the mid-tone to highlight. See how that works out for you. And then when you gain a little bit more confidence with that, you can do things like the lats, the biceps, like the muscles on the back, and develop all those nice sort of like muscle structure that you see on your miniature.
So
We've done that a few times.
So I will try that out next month. First, I will have to finish the Bretonians, as you say, rather than getting a talking to at the end of the month that I've not painted 250 points of Bretonians for this month. And that is what I've been doing.
You're already doing a lot better than me. So this past week, I have been doing VAT for the business instead of painting. So I've been selling tickets for events through my website. I thought, okay, this is an easy way to sell tickets. I'll be able to download the information, send it through to my accountant. She will say, Miles, thank you so much for making my life easier. Here is your VAT. You can get on with your life. Oh God, no. It's taken 2 solid days to work out the WooCommerce download. Why am I telling you this? This is annihilatingly boring. I've spent the past 2 days doing VAT. It's eaten up all my own personal hobby time. I'm sick to death of talking about it. I have made no more progress. And because this month I'm heading to Adepticon, I very much doubt I'm going to achieve this month's HobbyHammer challenge. But I know with my limited time, I am going to do something. I'm not going to just leave it lay fallow. I am going to do a little bit of something just to keep the clock ticking over. I'm going to completely finish off what I was doing last month. 99% of the way there, I need to do bases and just the odd highlight here and there. I've been taking photographs and a video for a video tutorial, so that's taking up a little bit more time. I want to produce a unit filler for them. We previewed it in the last issue that I've built a couple of units. I'll be painting one of the ogres as a unit filler for the Chaos Warriors, and that will be my pledge for this month, to just keep something ticking over on the books.
Yeah, well, that's fair enough. It's one of the things, life gets busy, and it's the thing that we said last month, is it's just going to happen sometime. So if anyone out there is doing your HobbyHammer pledge and you're like, oh, I've not finished, still let us know that you're doing it with the hashtag HobbyHammer, and we will still get to it if you want us to talk about it. That's, I think, the thing is...
Of course you want us to talk about it. What?
Miles is dying because of it.
Damn it! Of course you want us to talk about it. We will talk about it. Hashtag anything that you do in your life, hashtag HobbyHammer.
Is that what we're going with now? Like, if you have a nice vista from a long walk, tag it HobbyHammer. Yes.
If you take a picture of an interesting looking squirrel, hashtag HobbyHammer. If you have a weird growth somewhere on you, HobbyHammer. Hashtag the hell out of everything. That's what I want to see. I want to see some weird stuff on that hashtag going forward.
I agree, but I'm scared to agree.
Scare us with your entries.
Yeah.
Right. Our Discord group. Yeah, our Discord group is doing excellently. It all feels like we were in a pretty similar place. We weren't quite able to do the 500 points apart from Dark Horse painting. The next challenge he has set for next month is 250 points plus a unit filler. So if you want to join in, Discord's completely free to join. A really nice community. Keep each other motivated. Share some pretty cool memes in there. Nothing too offensive. Nothing that'll get us banned. Okay, yeah. Let's talk about the meat of it. This is why we hear top 10 miniatures Games Workshop have ever produced.
Yes. Well, I will let you go first because I'm very gracious.
Okay.
And very humble as well.
I want our viewers to stop the video here. Stop it dead. I want you to physically take out a pen and paper. Don't write it on your phone. Physically find paper or parchment, a pencil or pen, like root round in that drawer full of like lint and old crap that you have lying around. And physically write down your 10 top miniatures the Citadel have ever produced, and we'll see if they match up. Okay.
And then
so
get
I've got
angry
10.
at the fact that they don't match up.
and get angry because we disagree with you and your choices are wrong. So we've come up with 10. I've put them in no particular order. Max, you said that you did order them, but now we're pretending that you didn't, so make the sort of like segment flow a little better. Exactly. Okay, so the first choice, I'm gonna use this counter as my first choice. The plastic lion. Yes.
Seamless.
Okay, why this miniature? Looking, it was quite hard. I mean, how many images did I send you this morning? I think I sent you like 20 images. I kept chopping and changing. I was trying to strike that balance between hipster choices, between personal choices that I love. So like old niche miniatures that I don't give a rat's if you don't like. I loved it as a kid, so I'm putting it in. And actually genuinely well engineered, beautiful miniatures. And I think the lion, he kind of comes in the Venn diagram of all of that. He's an incredibly well-engineered miniature, all in plastic, lovely flow to him. When you look at him, just visually, even if you aren't a fan of Warhammer 40,000, know nothing about it, you can look at it and appreciate, oh, that's a cool, like, knight-ish miniature. It's just a cool miniature in a cool pose. And it's one of the, I guess, not exactly rare miniatures, but one of the few miniatures that when I paint up on commission, I'm sad to let go because I've enjoyed the process. Because you do get in that rhythm. Okay, I need to produce this as a job. It needs to be done in a certain time frame. No, I enjoyed painting this miniature, and afterwards I felt like, oh, I would love to paint one up for myself. So that's my choice number one, the lion.
Yeah. So I didn't have the lion on my list, though.
Mm.
I can see what you're saying with this. I think it's something that fits beyond Warhammer. It like sort of transcends into further fantasy and sci-fi realms. And it's just the flow of the model with the cape behind it, the sword down at the angle with the opposite foot stepped forward has a real nice flow to it, as well as the purity seals on the other side.
Yeah.
All of it as a composed piece when you're looking at it from this angle is really good. I think it's something that you said a few weeks ago of like models have a certain angle that they're meant to be photographed from. This is surely it, because it just looks like a painting as you get there.
Yeah, that's exact. I think the sculpt, I think it was Darren Latham who did this. The sculptor, I think they frame it around this. But this works in many different things. But yeah, like you say, like having it at this angle, I think works. And I always have this idea with dark angels. I love the idea that they turn up on a planet, and instead of trying to negotiate or try and do any like tactical maneuvers, they just phosphex the hell out of it. And then whatever's left over, they kill off. So I want to present the lion in this pose as if he's just like bombed the planet to bits, and he's striding through the phosphex, like this dark red umbral glow of this murdered world that he's walking through. Very cool miniature.
Yeah, and it's worth saying, like, we'll be showing these, like, if Miles has got a paint job of them, I've tended to put that in.
Yeah, it's pure narcissism on my point.
That's it, because it's probably good for showing exactly what we're going to be talking about with the piece. But mainly, I've been judging the actual model rather than any paint job that's on there. And more a possibility of a paint job than what picture I could find of it. Because it's a blank canvas that, say, anyone at home can acquire themselves, or in one case, surely not acquire one of mine, and like paint themselves. And I think they're all worthwhile of doing that. So, on to my first piece. We've got the Sons of Horus Command. Now, I'll go to the second image because it's both the standard bearer and the command model that I think are absolutely brilliant, because actually I think you get both models and you take the hand from the standard bearer with the standard and you put it on the other guy so that he's holding his. I really like the pose of holding a helmet in one hand and a standard in the other, and they just ooze menace, The banner is fairly unique, or is unique, because it's got that pinched point.
Yeah.
And these are just iconic models in the Heresy for me, personally. Like
Yeah,
the mark
I
of
agree.
armor in the breastplate of the captain model, I'm going to call it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that is
I think that was meant to be Malagust when it was first sculpted.
what the helmetless model.
Yeah.
I
I believe it was meant to be Malagust when it was first released or first sculpted.
I can see that. I can see that. I used it as a conversion, a base for a conversion for Malagust, so that he was kneeling in front of the War Master.
Oh, that's cool.
And like, so it would go with the Horus piece, like, you know, like Horus non-ascended. He would go at the base of the steps and be kneeling.
Yeah,
And it's just something that's really
cool.
characterful. And when you start getting Heresy paint jobs on there, really, like, as can be seen now on some of Miles's, they lend themselves to that rather than fighting against the paint job that you sort of want to put on there.
Yeah, I completely agree with everything you said. As a caveat, though, do you think it suffered because of its age? Meaning, I'd love to see this miniature upscaled. Do you think it suffered because of the upscaling of Marines and the slight change in scaling of the Heresy?
I think any model of this age suffers in the lower leg, where I'm circling now for everyone. Elsewhere, from sort of waist upwards, it's perfectly fine. Like, yeah, it's really, because really it's the thickness of the legs that I find has noticeably changed. And when actually, I think some models nowadays start detracting from the look of the piece with how chunky they are. I know some people like their Marines really chunky. I like them to be big, but I think the sort of flow of the piece gets disrupted by the chunkiness on some of them.
Yeah, I agree. I'm trying to search around for a suitable base for my for an Abaddon conversion I want to do in 40k, and it's exactly that. Some manufacturers, they upscale, make it really thick, really chunky, but then you lose the shape. But yeah, I completely agree. Completely agree with you. I can't argue against this. It is an iconic sculpt. I feel like it defines the Sons of Horus. I believe this was done by Alfonso Banshee, and I think he did. So one of my choices that almost made it in, or did it make it in? No, almost made it in, was the Contemptor Dreadnought, the Sons of Horus Contemptor Dreadnought.
Yeah.
Because it echoes these hallmarks, the brutality, the angled plates, the harshness of it. Yeah, great choice. Great choice.
Right. So next, we'll go on to Miles's. And do you want me to tell you what it is, Miles? Or have you
Please,
got
yes.
it
What have you loaded up?
So,
or do you want me to just wing it?
Go on, you give a guess.
Okay, so when I was thinking of... no, actually tell me before I get too far into this.
It's the Dark Eldar Corsair.
The Dark.
Yes, it should. So I sent Miles before a list. I sent back his list of photos in a numbered order. So it should be the number 2, and then we'll go to number 3 next. So the next model up for Miles, you've got the Dark Elf Vizark.
Yeah. So when I was trying to think of how do you encapsulate a race, because I feel like the Eldar needs some kind of representation on this list, I thought, okay, Eldar Alfron, for me, defined the range. The weird runes, the pose, how spindly it was. It just looked alien. The Wraithlord, the new plastic Wraithlord, I feel defines the look of the Eldar. Like you have this War Machine plain face. Just beautiful, elegant sculpt. So I wanted to try and find something that's representative of that, as well as being a banging miniature. And I think the Vizark crosses over so many lines. He could be a Dark Elder, he could be an Exodite, he can be just a regular Elder. He treads that line between the barbaric and the cultured. I think it's just like a beautiful flow with the miniature. You have this great fur, the screaming faces, the gemstones. I think he is just a great emblematic figure of the Elder race as a whole, as well as being just a badass miniature as well.
Yeah, it's a model that I think transcends the ranges as well. Like it plays into the the science fantasy aspect of
Yeah,
40k.
you're right. Yeah, it does.
Because really, like 40k to me is more. It's like fantasy done in a sci-fi realm than an actual hard sci-fi, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this really plays into it. It's something that looks in place in those like the grim dark setting of the far future, but also removing the pistol from the back hip. It plays into fantasy. The actual flow of the cape being contrasted to the other side, or not contrasted, but played off the stepping forward of the right foot is really good. And then like the screaming face on the dick plate, I really enjoy as a little detail.
Yeah. And I think it's like very visually Warhammer, right? It has this. I mean, we can go into your next choice as well, because I think you can see. I mean, one of my choices as well, honorary mention, was the Marlis Darkblade on foot, the one where he has like the outstretched hand, the curved armor, the viciousness of the armor, the sleekness of it. I think it plays into your next choice as well, which is.
Yeah, so that's specifically. I've sent a picture of 4 models here, but he's specifically the Count that's stepping up with the hand up in sort of like the power ballad, or the sort of on top of a cathedral with lightning striking in the background. And I think it's such a vampire sort of trope encapsulated within this model that it deserves to be on there. It's not like the biggest, fanciest model, but the composition of the piece just screams exactly what it is.
It has a similar hallmark to the Vizark as well, where the kind of cape comes in the silhouette and flows out. It has a beautiful like line towards the face, and it also has a bit of that grim derpiness as well, having the skull breastplate.
Yeah,
very 80s.
We're very Warhammer, right? I know we said we're doing Games Workshop models, and it's one of the things is having ridiculous skulls in random places.
Yeah, it's a stupid universe. It's a silly universe, and we shouldn't forget that.
Yeah, are there any more vampire models than this? Like, what model? I don't think there's any that scream vampire more than this model.
How about the original Wartime vampire, where he's kind of like, he looks like he's like going towards you.
Send me a picture. Send me a picture.
Yeah.
So Miles has sent me this vampire. I think the fact that you've brought this up and we've pulled it up on screen makes, because I've already seen the list of both of us, this is the most ridiculous thing that will be up today. This is the most ridiculous shout for a good model that's more vampire than vampire.
I'm not saying good, I'm saying more vampire. When I look at the two images, which one has a higher vampire scale? This, I think, is over 6,000. This scores more vampire points.
It scores more like, I want to suck your blood.
Exactly, yes. But more vampire.
No, but
what are you looking for?
That's not just the like, this is it has the dark majesty of a vampire.
I don't want dark majesty. I want the cheesy accent. I want the teeth falling out because they plastic.
You want like the Christopher Lee sort of
Hammer horror. Yeah. I don't want dark magic. Like, I want the original Vlad von Carstein, where he's going to battle in like bedrobes. That's the vampire I want. That's the vampire I grew up on. Damn it.
I think we'll agree to disagree on that one and get get onto your next model.
Next choice. Okay, I think this is this is one we both agree on. Okay, so when was the first time you saw Archaon on horse?
I think it was Games Day 2003 or just before it. It was because they'd done it that year the Archaon on foot, which is also a fabulous model. But I can't put two. I can't put 2 models of the same model on the same list. Where did you see it first? Was it as memorable as a
yes. I mean, there are a few times I remember. So there was. I remember where I was at 9/11. I remember where I was when Princess Diana died. I remember where I was when I saw Archaon on horse for the first time. Okay, on a horse. He
There's
was
so many
in
questions from that list.
he was on the inside. He was on the inside cover of the new Warriors of Chaos book that was coming out. Got an advanced copy of it. Haven't seen him since the internet wasn't a thing. People are still sending messages via carrier pigeons. Opened it up, and the entire store just stopped, and we had about a half an hour discussion on how good this miniature was. Flow of the cape, the tasteful thickness. I mean, this is a proper destrier. This is a proper thick horse. This is a war horse right here with a proper fully grown snout that can eat a man's head whole. And what I really appreciated about the sculpt as well, that Games Workshop models, they do have a tendency to have this sort of like bobblehead thing when you increase Space Marine to actual size. They're freaking huge heads. Because it's in the scale, you know, you want to paint a nice head. But this, they kept the head small, but still chock full of detail. I think you always remember where you were the first time you saw the sculpt.
Yeah, so this is one as well that I can remember it in the Hordes of Chaos book. It goes really well into a scene, like because it just oozes the menace of a horseman of the apocalypse. That is such an iconic thing in the minds of a lot of people, myself included, that it fits in lots of places, and any direction of this model just screams exactly what it wants to be, which is the end of the world. Do you know, like when this encapsulates everything that chaos is meant to be in the universe, as well as the actual composition of the piece being really nice with the flow of the cape mirroring the sword, and that's all leading back to the head. The head being menacing enough with the sunken eyes, and it doesn't have to have an actual face on it. In fact, I think that'd detract from the model if it was unhelmeted rather than helmeted.
I think that's it. Menace. You've hit the nail on the head there. It's a menacing sculpt, and it's something that I want to go back to with another one of my choices. The menace of okay.
Yeah, and
so we go from menacing.
Well, just before we go on to the next one, this is something that I think stands up today. I think it's a model that you can put down on today's tables, and it looks like it would go with the elements of the Warriors of Chaos army in Sigmar. It goes, it stands up nowadays. And the reason I wanted to interrupt to say this is that is completely the opposite of my pick that's coming up next.
I did want to segue there. Okay, we go from a very menacing miniature into a very non-threatening miniature. Okay, so why have you chosen this, Max?
Right.
Why?
So I chose the King Alric for contrasting to like Archaon has nostalgia for me, but stands up without the nostalgia, I think. Alric is very much nostalgia hammer for me.
This is a nostalgia pick.
Yeah, there's nothing brilliant about like the composition of the model that we're gonna be saying in a few different pieces along this discussion, but it is very dwarf, and it was something that when I was getting into the hobby, it's 3 times dwarf within one model. And that I don't mean because of the 3 dwarves in the model. I just mean it just is so dwarf it hurts. So there's no like actual reason for me putting this model in, and it's something that I actually included another dwarf that I think is better for conveying the spirit of dwarves. And
this next one I want to make fun of you for. The dwarf on shield I get because you had the iconic Adrian Smith artwork. I remember this miniature coming out. It was a cool sculpt in a range of stunted dwarves to have something with a little bit of height.
Yeah.
I thought, I mean, as a 12-year-old boy, that is a cool concept, having the dwarf on the shield. But why this? It doesn't look like it. It doesn't look like anything.
I think because I can imagine this on a battlefield for dwarves. It's hard to say. I can imagine this standing there in a piece of artwork, do you know, like a black and white sketch artwork.
Yeah.
This is fully a piece of artwork for me. I
Like in your
can't sit
top
here and
10
fully defend.
sculpts,
Well,
in your top 10 sculpts of all time,
do you know
this makes
what?
it in the list.
If this was on top of them two shield bearers, and I can't keep doing this, but if this was on top of them two shield bearers, that is just pure artwork. Like I'm convinced like it's properly more
You
dwarf
bring
than
up a
dwarf.
good point there. You've been a bit cheeky here because we've asked for like, what's your favorite miniature? And then you have a command squad, that's 2 miniatures. You have the vampires, which is 4 miniatures.
No, it's not. That's
you
one.
Have this dwarf guy with 3 miniatures. Like what's got like 1 miniature at a time?
No, because then we have to put Archeon on horse as 2 miniatures because his horse counts as 1. If the dwarf mounted on 2 of the dwarfs count as 3 dwarfs, it doesn't. That's one model. But yeah, no, okay, the other guy sort of just brings up the ridiculous of that was in there to bring up the ridiculous of my position, and I know it's fully ridiculous bringing up these dwarfs.
Right, we go from the ridiculous to the sublime then, because I'm here to rescue the day with my next choice.
Okay.
Again, like a couple of my choices, especially towards the tail end of this, are very much driven by nostalgia, but this isn't one of them. I wanted to make sure that I paid attention to the new incredible sculpts that are coming out more recently, especially in AOS. And I think this is the best sculpt in AOS. It came down to choosing this or the Nurgle Lord on horse, because that sculpt is mind-blowing. But I think this just about pips it. Again, even like small details, like the whip of the tail of the horse, which is going in the same direction as the banner, the cloak, the mane of the hair. Yeah, the flow of the miniatures all going in the right direction. When you're talking about composition, or when you see this, you can see this as being like a part of a greater scene, or being like a piece of artwork in itself. This, for me, encapsulates that. And towards the tail end of last year, Warhammer.com were running a competition, which was the best sculpt of the year. And mentally, for me, it came down to Fulgrim Transcended or this. I think between the two, this is the better sculpt.
Do you know what? This is potentially what should have been in my list rather than that dwarf. Because I considered it, and I was thinking about it, but I thought with having Archeon on horse in there, I can't just have everything mounted. But then, I suppose as you brought up in the last model, he is technically mounted. He's not just on mounted.
Everything is mounted, yeah.
But it just adds nice elements to the piece. I think it's because so many artworks and models being pieces of art benefit from the same thing, are horseback or mounted. It follows. Now, it's exactly including the direction of travel on the piece, like moving, like sort of pointed downwards, rather than rearing up heroically or something like that. I think works really well for the tone of the Cities of Sigmar models or fantasy models if you're using it for fantasy. It's absolutely brilliant.
Slightly more downtrodden, beaten, broken, weather-worn. Sublime. 10 out of 10 for the sculpt.
Yeah. So, on to Leopold
right, what have you chosen next?
Black.
Oh, okay. I can't. Okay. So I did have the idea. I don't think we'll have time for in this issue of reviewing our choices and then arguing with each other who makes it into the top 10. And when I was having this mental argument with you in the shower, I think it would come down to butting heads between Leopold the Black and the Free Guild Marshal. And I think between the two, you would win. Leopold Black would win for the sculpt. Yeah. Really? Do you own this miniature? Have you?
I don't, and I checked eBay. So I think we actually get more and more now as we move up the list into models that I neither own nor have painted. And they're just like such incredible models that they're still in my list.
It's otherworldly.
Yeah.
It's like, do you know when you go around somewhere like Rome and you see these big, huge sculptures, and the detail on them is mind blowing, and you can't reconcile the fact that something that's just so perfect rendered in it looks like the marble is, you're viewing it in between movements, and like if you look away, it's going to move without you seeing. I feel the same way about this sculpt. It's so good. You can't believe that something is so perfect rendered in the scale.
Yeah. No, it's I agree. It's one I would love to paint this model.
Mm-hmm.
And it captures the sort of the feeling of the Empire being like, do you know, he's obviously an aging bloke with I wonder if I've got the other side of his face on the next picture. No.
It seems like the small things, like on the hem of his bastard blade, having like the two faces on the top of his blade.
Yeah. Yeah, he's a bit blurred on the picture, but down to the minutiae, it's very good. Now, one thing is that actually I was a bit hesitant putting it on because it's so busy. But I think that's one thing that armors of the time period that this is based off tend to be as well. So I ended up putting it on. Like the face is an excellent face, just different than any other model or most other models that we tend to get. And I think it stood the test of time since it's come out. Just impossible
and I think
to get.
Yeah, I think the Free Guild Marshall miniatures based on this, cracking choice. Absolutely, like I cannot argue with that at all. Great choice. Right, what did I choose next?
Your next
bring it up?
is Janita
My mouse has died.
Kroll.
Oh, Janisha Kroll. So this was a late entry for me. Who did I have originally? Oh, it was the Baneblade tank. So I wanted the Baneblade tank in there because it was a feat of engineering at that time to have a kit so big in plastic. It's an iconic piece of artillery in the Imperial Guard. But when I'm thinking which miniature is more impressive to me, which one is a greater feat of artistry, for me is Janisha Kroll. Again, I don't understand how something so small and so perfect can exist. Her eyebrows are sculpted. The bird, the Imperial Eagle on here, I don't understand how you can see these details, let alone render them. On the back of her halos, these tiny little lightning strikes. It's a miniature that's intimidating because of how exquisite and perfect the detail is on her. And when I was looking back at my back catalogue, I tried to think of, okay, which miniatures did I enjoy painting the most? Which ones challenged me the most? Which ones did I feel like I am evolved as an artist? And I think for me, this covers all of those sections. I felt like I become a better painter for tackling her. I felt intimidated by her, and I felt that this is a miniature that's just wholly and utterly exquisite. I think it's the best miniature done in the Talons of the Emperor's range.
Oh, yeah. Do you know what? I won't argue with that one. It didn't make my top 10 list, or none of the Talons made my top 10 list. Because I think, say, like, armor is done better elsewhere, or just for me personally. Like,
no, I guess. Yeah, have you seen this miniature? Have you? I think, like with Leopold the Black, pictures, you don't realize just how perfect the sculpt is until you have it in hand. And this is one of those miniatures that's not like big and bombastic. It's not like a dwarf riding other dwarfs. It's one of these ones that you.
Am I going to live that down ever? No, I don't think so.
When you have it in hand, you realize how lucky we are as collectors to have a sculptor like this, because I believe this is done by Sam at the studio, Simon Egan, who does most of the Primarch sculpts. We're incredibly fortunate to have a talent like this producing miniatures like this. Yes, and that's why she makes my top 10.
Right, so next.
How about you? What's your rejoiner?
Next, we go on to Ghazghkull Thraka, the new 40K.
2 miniatures again. Two miniatures again.
Oh, come
off
is this? I don't care about that fucking gobbo. Yeah, the gobbo doesn't have to be in there. The Ghazghkull Thraka sculpt, I think, it's one just the Ghazghkull. It's just the Ghazghkull.
He's not riding him. You can't even use that as an excuse now. So, okay. How do you justify your 2 miniatures?
Well, I justify it by ignoring the Gretchen.
Okay, as the orcs do.
It's a very menacing piece. It doesn't obviously scream like Rider or like the Riders of the Apocalypse, but it's got its own menace in its own way. The big ridiculous claw is very orky, but it doesn't outweigh the rest of the piece because of the size of the armor. The framing of the exhausts make it look very, like, not archaic, but ridiculous and over the top, and give the sort of Mad Max vibes, whilst also adding to the composition. That overused word.
Yeah, we have to call the episode that.
Well, we're
our top
really
10 compositions.
We're really trying not to use it, but it's hard. Yeah, it's the gun being ridiculous and orky, and I think it's a really good update with throwbacks to the original model. That it deserves to make it into my.
So here's a question for you and our audience. Which is objectively the better sculpt, this one or the Brian Nelson version? So the Lost Metal one.
Right, let me just pull that up. So this is the one that Miles is referencing. And also I think you can see straight away the hallmarks that go into the new model from this. Oh, it's not the original one. Yeah. Miles was just telling me it's the midpoint.
Yeah, so the original one was in second edition. That was quite a small one. And then you had the Brian Nelson sculpt, which was huge for the time. Like this, I remember picking up just this big solid chunk of metal. I'm not sure whether nostalgia's coloring my opinion here.
Do you know what?
I think I actually...
Go on.
I think I prefer the Brian Nelson one. I think I do, yeah.
Do you know what? I think the pose lets it down.
Okay.
If this model was in a more open pose, like you said about the Dwarf Lord being covered up by beard.
Right. Okay.
If it was more opened up and not just like walking forwards and almost like closing itself off by falling to the side of the servo arm.
Okay, I see that.
I'd put it probably higher. Whereas
okay,
a lot higher than the other model. Whereas the new model,
the other one, the new one has like a bombast to it. It has an energy. It has a liveliness to it that the second one doesn't. Yeah. I could agree with you there.
So
weird,
and I think this has enough hallmarks. It maybe just goes too big, like maybe a bit too big, and that's why you prefer the second one. But I think the pose makes up for it.
Very well, maybe. Like the new one, really like the new one. And I'm pretty sure it's just nostalgia coloring my because I remember seeing the Brian Nelson sculpt. Yeah. This isn't sort of like a scientific, like what has the most vampire points, where we can very clearly empirically say which one is the more vampiric of the sculpts.
Obviously, the Christopher Lee one.
Obviously, yes, obviously.
So next,
right, okay.
Onto your.
Oh yes. Where were you the first time you saw this sculpt? Now, I was sat at the Horus Heresy weekend where they revealed this for the first time, the Horus Lupercal sculpt. It blew my mind. Again, just thinking, how could something so perfect exist in this scale? From the fallen base, so you had the imagery of Horus toppling the Empire and the Imperium. You had the eagle, you had the framework, then you had the talon of Horus. The size was great. The face was regal, magisterial, commanding. And what was great about this sculpt is that how you painted it would give a different impression of where he was in the timeline. You could paint him super evil with the red underglow and the red glowing eyes and everything blown up around him, or you could paint him in the white armor as Horus Lupercal as he was. The sculpt that is a blank canvas for you, the artist, to put your impression on, as well as being a wonderful construction or confirmation or configuration or constitution.
Have you just read that from writing
or
it
down? Structure. I looked up similar words to composition.
Right. Yeah, I think it's perfect, as you say, for conveying the different sides of Horus. I like the sweep of Worldbreaker as well as the cloak. And it can either be dramatically leading forward
Hmm.
or sort of like directing, depending on which way
Yeah,
you
he could
point
be
the
looking
head.
towards the future. He
Yeah,
could be looking towards the future, or he could be like you said, commanding his troops. He could be threatening. He could be inspiring. Just all through a twist of a head.
yeah, and then and that might sound like a small thing to really like a model on,
Hmm.
but that
It's
that's achievable within.
Yeah, it's what differentiated this and the new horror sculpt, which is magnificent.
Right, so I'll flick up to the new horror sculpt.
Brill. It's magnificent. It's a wonderful sculpt, but you can only. I feel like you can only present in one way because half the faces are like molded into the side of it. You haven't got those levels of interpretation, and I think as a standalone sculpt, looking at the details and the formation, the original is a finer crafted miniature than the new one.
Yeah, I think I would agree with that. I think it
Mm.
again. This is another one that oozes menace. Is
Yeah, and
the
that's not
horror's
to say that
descended?
the new one isn't good. It's not a criticism of the new one. It's just if you're comparing the two together and you have to say which one do you prefer, I think on those reasons I prefer the first one.
I I would agree. I would agree. Not going to be an argument from that one. The original Horus is excellent. Is absolutely excellent. So
Yeah.
let's go
So,
on to my next one.
otherworldly. Right. Okay. Hopefully we could argue about this one. Or is it another two miniatures?
It is another two miniatures. It's the Green Knight who is on a horse, counting as two, right?
You're not going to get an argument from me. I love this miniature. He made my top 10 as well.
Right. Yeah. So I think this is in both of ours. It's a conversation entirely of does it stand up today? I don't think it does as much as Archeon. Like
Yeah.
Archeon is my number one pick for model overall.
Hmm.
This is something that is slightly tinged by nostalgia, I think, for me, but
Hmm.
it so captures what a Bretonian knight is
Hmm.
that I think it deserves to at least be collected, even if not included in an army nowadays.
Hmm.
Because I'm not sure whether it even
Yeah.
fits the sixth edition knights that they've just re-released. Not sure it
Yeah.
actually
Slightly
even fits the
chunkier.
sixth edition knights that they've re-released.
I, I think you could fool the eye by building up the base a little bit and having it just physically standing larger. Um, but I think this miniature is a combination of it being one of the best sculpts
Mm.
Games Workshop have ever produced and one of the best paint jobs they've ever produced. So when you look at this with the scrolling work on there,
Mm.
it's mind. I mean, to a 12-year-old boy, it's mind blowing.
Do
To a
you
37-year-old sort of man, mind blowing.
do you think we're then tinged by the paint job rather than looking at the model on its own? Then
But it's a combination of the both, right? There's a reason why they hire highly skilled artists to present the models as best as possible. How many times have you seen a sculpt and think, oh, I don't quite like the paint job? You see somebody else do it, and think, God, I love that miniature. I need that miniature now. I don't think you can separate the two.
it's very hard to,
Hmm.
but like potentially just tinged by that. It is, as I say, I think as a collector's piece, looking back on the history of Warhammer, this deserves to be in the top 10. I'm just
Yeah,
I'm
it's
just now
right up there,
thinking of
right?
it because we've literally just gone through Archeon, and
Uh-huh.
I'm thinking, how does it hold up with Archeon? But I think that's always going to be a negative impression for me, and I think it deserves to be on this list for me at at the
Yeah,
place that it's in.
me too. Yeah, it's very high up there, battling for the number one spot, at the very least.
Oh,
Okay.
really? Oh,
Oh, we'll have a discussion of this at the end. Like what is the number one sculpt that we like? I think we're gonna have quite big arguments about that. Right.
you're
Um,
next. You're next. Now this
yes.
Miles is the closed off dwarf lord equivalent within your
Yeah.
list.
You are a 9-year-old boy girl. You are driven past a Games Workshop on your way out of Cardiff every Saturday, and you see in the an open close sign, and it's an Imperator Titan. They used to have like an open close sign. You beg your mother to go in there. She finally takes you in. You're presented by row upon blister packs. I remember you're only 9. You're quite low down, so everything looks big. You have like these big Warhammer, and you have the second edition, second edition Warhammer 40k box set with a guy with a fist in there blasting down. Everything's so bright, so colorful. And then you come across this thing, like this box set. You pick it up. Gee, why is this so heavy? What is it? It is a dreadnought, a lump of metal, this stocky, stout thing that is a coffin housing a genetically enhanced super warrior, and it's wielding a plasma gun. Very much a nostalgia choice, because I don't understand how it could walk, but just the thickness, the stoutness, the dimensions of it, the big, thick power fist, the banner on the back, Yes, this. When I think of iconic miniatures that have shaped the feeling and look of Warhammer as an entity, there's a few things that immediately spring to mind, but this is one of them. The Dreadnought, the original Dreadnought. It's stocky, it's thick, it doesn't look like it can work. It is Imperial technology down to the rivet. Argue with me. Go on.
I agree. It's iconic.
But anything for the but doesn't count.
Is it the best? Is it on the 10 best models of all time?
Ever. Absolutely.
I will let you get away with it because I put that stupid Dwarf Lord in there. I think is how, because I think we should both be allowed a folly.
Objectively, one of the best sculpts ever made. Possibly number 1. Better than Archaon on horse. The only thing that can make this better, I think what would make it better in your eyes, if it was mounted on a couple of dwarves.
If it was mounted miniature. On 2 other dreadnoughts in between.
On 2 other dreadnoughts.
A Fenrisian dreadnought shield.
Perfect. Yes, there you go. That it would have made your top 10 then, wouldn't it? Okay. I mean, we go from the ridiculous. Do you want to go to the sublime again?
I've picked Ferrus as my
Ferrus Manus.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
good choice.
That is because, and this is the first picture isn't the best angle, but the second picture, which is from the back,
it's so hard to take a good photo. It's so hard to take a good photo of this piece.
It's something that needs to be seen in 3D, but the flow of it, you are sort of seeing that hammer strike in real time, and it captures the movement of the model really, really well and conveys the dramaticness of the scene. And Fulgrim, like counterplaying on this, adds to Ferrus, but I don't think could have gone in there as one of my favourite models. Like a
standalone piece.
Yeah, but Ferrus Manus, I think does.
I think Ferrus Manus is a very underrated sculpt. It's only when you have it in hand, when you see like the detailing of the arms, just how structurally good and realistic and faithful they look. The grimace of the face, how finely sculpted the hammer is. Like I say, the flow. So this was actually Simon. He took Mark Bedford around the back of the Forge World studio, around the bins, and he had him pose for him. So that's how he got such a nice flow to the sculpt. It's this Vulcan, I think, is a very underrated sculpt, and I think that Angron is a very underrated sculpt as well.
Really, that tends to be one that people really don't like. I know he's a bit smaller than the rest of the Primarchs, but I actually quite like Angron.
It's a victim of its time, I think. If it was sculpted now with the level of detail but bigger, I think people would have a much different opinion. It's just it's the thin legs.
Do you think in like 11 years we'll be looking back on the models of today, like the lion that you said first, and being like, God, it was so weedy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We got like the Joy toys.
Yeah. And every model is like 54 mil scale.
Yeah, quite possibly. I hope so, because my eyes aren't getting any better.
So, next, Miles. I think it's one that was on both of our lists. Oh no, is this your final one?
This is my final one. Yeah, I've
Abaddon.
left the best to last. The original metal Abaddon sculpt. Again, where were you the first time that you remember seeing this? Was it some kind of like seismic disaster? No. So I saw this first in the White Dwarf, blown away by not only the level of detail, the screaming faces, the Draknine, the sword, the screaming face. Like, how on earth did you sculpt all those faces? The rack on his back, the trophy rack, the face, the top knot, and it was huge. It was such a big miniature for the time because they only had miniatures on the small 25mm bases, and this thing could barely fit on that. It just completely dominated everything, every miniature around it. The Talon of Horus, just how vicious it looked. I think that miniature set the look of not only that generation of Chaos Marines, but as Chaos as a faction moving forward. And even when you look retroactively at the Reva sets, at the Chthonian sets, you can see echoes of this sculpt in those designs. I think Abaddon is a pivotal, central sculpt to Warhammer's an IP and Warhammer 40k as a feeling and a look.
So I would then put to you,
Mhm.
although this may have set the tone and been an important stepping stone
Yes.
on like the journey from like 2nd edition to 10th or wherever 40k is now, is this a better sculpt than the new Abaddon? Is it actually better? Let me pull up the new Abaddon. Right, so finding the new Abaddon model, we have this.
Oh, yeah.
The claw upwards. This is Miles's painted Abaddon, so he's got experience in exactly what it is that we're talking about. I think this is a much better model. The flow, it's now got flow included because the hair and the cape.
Dynamism.
It's just happening. Yeah, dynamism, menace.
Oh, so do you know why I don't like
Even
the new one?
Go on.
I don't like the rack on the back. I don't like the trophy rack.
Chuck it. That's
Yeah,
so
I know, but we're evaluating it on the sculpt as it is, not what we can do to it.
Yeah, but I mean, like, you're writing it off because of this rack. I actually prefer this rack rather than the double.
Not writing it off. No, right off. Weirdly, it's such a stupid thing, but I think like when there's like a big strong gust of wind, it feels like that rack would like pull him off center.
Yeah, but only backwards and forwards. Whereas Abaddon, the Classicals rack, would do that when he got blown sideways.
But there's room for the wind to maneuver in between spikes.
Agree to disagree.
I know, it's such a stupid thing. It's such a stupid. Okay, if I take my nostalgia, if I take my nostalgia glasses off, I think the new one is better because when you look at it, you can see a scene, you can see a drama for it, and like you say, the flow, the dynamism of it. Yeah, the new one is better. The new one is better.
Now, if you were in, like, say just like by chance that you're into heresy, what about what about the Abaddon heresy model?
So I'm a big lover of the old. It's weird saying the old Abaddon, the Forge World Abaddon, because there's very few examples of dynamic Terminators across the ranges. I think the new plastic despoiler, I don't like his chest plate. I don't like the inclusion of sort of like bands of cabling that are kind of fleshy, which I think the new Abaddon has. I don't like how thin and spindly his legs are either. I think there are problems with the proportions of the new Abaddon, whereas with the resin Abaddon, I think it's in proportion. It looks big, chunky, menacing. It looks like a realistic movement of Terminator armor just on the downswing as he's about to like take Logan's head or tries to take Logan's head.
Do you know what? I agree with you on like the dynamism of the legs. I think it suffers the Forge World model now from being too small.
Yeah, there is that, yeah.
As a piece, he's also halfway through a pose, which when you're constructing something like an artwork or anything like that, you tend to want poses to be complete when something's put together. Like you want to be at the extent of a pose.
You want
to give things
I guess, in the sort of like heroic shot of it.
Yeah. Whereas being halfway through something and incomplete can often look janky, and I think that to me, the Abaddon model from Forge World sort of suffers from that. I also don't get why the claw is also. I know it's meant to sort of be being thrown back, but that doesn't match with if you're going downwards with the sword this way. Why am I going like I'm going like that? Am I?
So he's stepping going down with the sword, and then he's stepping
forwards with the wrong foot. I think
he could twist that. He could twist his hip.
I think it's sort of just stepping forward with the wrong foot, if that's the case. Like it's planted, and then he's going down. The energy's going downwards if he's slicing through with a sword like that. Surely his chest is coming up, like to slice through. And I might be wrong on that one, but it just looks a bit janky to me.
Right. Yeah. I mean, between the two, like as an objectively. Effect. Oh yeah, I think between the two as like an objectively finer sculpt, I think that the Forge World version just pips it for me. I think there are elements of the plastic version that I think are slightly off, whereas, I mean, personal preference. I prefer the Forge World version of the Abaddon.
Yeah, no, that's fair. It's something that we don't have to agree on.
Yeah, and like you say, small. If he's bigger, if you can scan it, make him bigger, I think it will solve a lot of problems to it.
And if you have an opinion, if you have a horse in this race, let us know in the comments who is right, so that I can lord it over Miles when I'm inevitably right, or you can slap me in the face for making this comment.
You're going to get demolished. The chat is on my side.
Right. So, next. I believe...
Oh, you've missed out one of my choices. Sorry, I've just realised you missed out one of my choices. Yes, but we'll round back to that.
That's because it's included in my choices. So...
Oh, great. Okay.
The Void Dragon sculpt for the Necrons in 40k. I think... And this starts getting onto a few pieces that I don't collect these armies, but presenting challenges to painters to display skill. I think this is one of the pieces. It's got directional flow to the model, and then has differing elements that counterplay that, like the lightning and chunks of Catan shard on the left. The left of the model, the right as we're looking at it, really nicely counterplay the sort of tail and the spear. The wings framing it, and also leading back to with the curve down to the head. And sort of Magneto posy, which is always a strong choice, I think.
No, I really like this choice. I just sort of like as an engineering feat to have something this big floating above the battlefield. I think it was same thing with Sanguinia, same thing with one of our other choices coming up. Just as a pure engineering feat alone, this should be admired. The only I'm really scratching at this. The only negative I could possibly dredge up about this sculpt is that the muscle structure feels a little bit soft, a little bit undefined, maybe a little bit underdone. Dare I say it?
Really? So I'm just zooming in on it now for everyone.
Just through painting it, I guess in comparison to the other portions of the miniature, I found that the most boring, even though that had the most plain, flat, open spaces. But perhaps that's a problem with me. Perhaps I should have spent a little bit more time embellishing it. Perhaps I should have put sort of like Necron tier runes scrawled across the skin. because there's a plain canvas that I didn't exploit. But I'm really scratching around for anything to think of where I didn't like painting this miniature. But I really enjoyed painting this miniature. Went together well, painted very well. Big, bombastic, good story to it. Yeah, really solid choice.
Cool. So next, and did that make your list, by the way?
No.
No. So next, I've got Ariel, the Ever Queen,
Mhm.
who is on the
On
Beetle.
Stag Beetle.
Yeah, so 2 models because it's mounted. Whenever you see this painted really well, it looks amazing and is one of those artistic pieces again that I think is near unrivaled. Like, I think this is like 6 years old now or something like around there. And there's very few models that come close to it in terms of artistic composition. Less so, like it's less prevalent in the Beetle, so maybe as an overall piece, I could see an argument for it overall not being as good, but the actual Ariel model, I think, is absolutely incredible. Directional flow, skin with which to paint, amazing skin blends.
I think it suffers from that early Age of Sigmar itis that sculpts had when they first come out. It's just too much. It's too over the top. There are too many elements thrown at this. Because you have the Beetle, which is a big, strong aspect to it. Then you have Ariel, then you have the wings, then you have like the leaves. My eye doesn't know where. When we look at the lion, for example, the line's very clean. It leans towards the face. When we look at Archaon, again, very clean, flowing lines that lead it into a recognizable composition. With this, I feel like my pattern recognition is all over the place. It's an incredibly busy miniature. And does okay, this is such an unfair thing to say, but does it represent? Do you feel like it fairly represents Ariel, the Ever Queen?
Um, I wasn't looking at it like that. I was just looking at it
Yeah.
as a model because
Yeah.
I'm not into elves, and I'm in either.
Yeah.
Do you know, like in either system of like the 40k universe, fantasy universe, like including Sigmar, etc. But still, this is always a model that comes to mind when I think about incredibly good models. So that
Yeah.
then
I think it suffers from just almost like an anxiety of relaunching this new system and wanting to impress and just throwing everything at a miniature. I think AOS has matured as a range of miniatures so much because it's gained confidence in itself, and it doesn't hurt that it's willing to go back to its Warhammer roots, like we see in the Dark Oath Marauders. Okay,
other than the fact that none of
we
the other models have made our list.
yes, other than none of them made the list, yeah, but they're not scared to go back and reimagine like the Lizardman range. They didn't need to like completely reinvent everything about them. No, they could take their own cues from their own IP and develop a good sculpt from it. This, it feels like it's too anxious, it's too nervous to impress. It's too much for me, of course.
Yeah, no, it's fair. It's fair. We can disagree with stuff. Finally on my list was Archaon, which we've already covered.
Yes, so Fulgrim Transcended.
The one, the only, the picture that Miles forgot to send me.
Yeah.
It's Fulgrim
Wondering why
Transfigured.
You had... Wondering, why do you have one more pick than me? Yeah, what's that? And most of your picks were 2 miniatures. You've got double the choice. Yeah, Fulgrim Transcended. Trying to think of amazing miniatures. Trying to think of transcendent miniatures. Things that take your breath away. Even if you know nothing about Warhammer, you present this to someone like, wow, that's a cool miniature. But I think the sculptor is almost faced with an impossible task. How on earth do you represent the fabulous Snake Man? How on earth do you present something so delicate, so divine, so detailed, but this big and bombastic? in the lines of the sculpt, the sinuous nature of it, the wings. And there are some really nice hidden details on here. Like there are faces in the wings where it looks like it's curdling in the warp. The swords have. Do you remember the old artwork from the Realms of Chaos book? And you crack it open and you have all the different swords, and each of these swords has a different illustration. Well, his weapons look like those, like they're full of fangs and maws and teeth and eyes boiling into one another. And then you have these really nice sleek lines of the armor, the negative space. You have the skin. It's perfection. It's absolute perfection in miniature.
Yeah, so by the sounds of that, is this your favourite pick out of any model?
Oh,
Well,
are we going to talk about that now?
Consider that in a second, because I was going to say it's like this didn't make my list, and it's
okay. Objectively, I think this is the best sculpt Games Workshop have produced.
Objectively, you think right? So, and that's
objectively.
That's sort of the what if we're going for what we set out to go for. This is your favourite, and do you know what? I don't know why it didn't make my list.
Have you seen it? Have you held it in person?
Yes.
Oh, right. Okay.
And
you have no excuses then.
If it's just being wrong, you can't help idiocy, Miles.
Yeah.
And it's got nice flow to the side.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know whether the additional arms actually just confuse the directional purposes of the piece for me. I'd not noticed the faces in the wings actually, but it's maybe you've spent enough time with it to like appreciate it more than I did. Because when I say I've seen it in person, I didn't spend I didn't spend 20 minutes looking at it. I spent at most 2 minutes looking at it. So maybe needed more time to appreciate the finer details.
Yeah, with this, I painted it obviously on commission, but I had to photograph it. I have to take step-by-steps of it. I had to build like a whole... So after painting it, then I'd have to go back, review the materials, build a tutorial masterclass of it. So there was a lot of... not feedback, but just like a lot of thinking behind this miniature. It's just every detail on it is just completely and utterly exquisite. I mean, even on the shoulder pad, you can see on the right shoulder pad left as we look at it, there are teeth protruding from it.
Yeah, from the bottom.
Every surface of this thing is vicious. It's liquid. It's sinuous. It's perfect.
Have you got the thesaurus up again?
I'm really racking my brain. Yeah, rather than just overload my mouth with words.
Composition.
Yes, it's composition. It's a very good miniature, and I think objectively, from the composition, from the detailing, from the architectural nature of it, from the engineering masterpiece of it, from the story it evokes, I think this is the... I'm contradicting myself here, because between this and the Free Guild Marshal, I thought that won Model of the Year, but now I'm saying this is the best miniature they ever produced. Right? Okay, you can have a barrel full of laughs at me for that. Oh my god!
No, it's fine. I won't relentlessly hound you for that.
Yeah,
I'll just say the Christopher Lee vampire was a mistake.
I've been getting some horrible messages on YouTube recently, just horrible messages. So I'm very aware. I'm very aware of the contradiction there. Okay, I'm going to change my mind again. I think that this miniature is the best produced by Games Workshop. It's the best sculpt they've ever done. Okay, I'm going to live in that. Okay, in the comments section, you can rip me apart. I'm not going to read it. I'm too fragile.
Those are our opinions, right? And they're okay being different than other people's opinions. If we have missed your favourite piece, let us know what it is, and if you've got the energy, let us know why it is your favourite piece. No, because it's one thing to just say a model and us then not understand your reasons for it. If you have got the energy to do it, let us know why it is your favourite piece. Like mine is the Archaon on horse, because it delves into like mythology and even the Christian legends of the horsemen of the apocalypse and stuff like that. And it encapsulates all that and makes it also a Warhammer model, and that is why it's my favorite. And it stands up. It's a good piece, artistic. This is Miles's, for all that babble that he said.
You said that the Archaon is your favorite miniature. Between the two, which is objectively better? Which is the better sculpt?
Between this and Archaon?
Between this and Archaon, yeah.
I think this probably is more detailed, but I don't think it's better. I think it's busier with the tail. I think the armor is massively overwrought comparatively. And I think, yes, it might have, do you know what? I'm not going to comment on details on the wing, because I was sort of going to flippantly say it might have details on the wing. But, it's
got, veins.
Archaon. It's
veins in the wings.
It's art, whereas if you see this from... I'm just going to have to take it at this angle, because otherwise we're describing a visual medium without a different visual.
Yeah.
If you put this as an ink paint, as an ink painting or anything like that, an inked picture, I don't think it holds up as a piece of art, whereas Archaon is just bam, and you know exactly what that model is conveying in theme of the overall world and army and their purpose in it. Whereas this, I don't think does that. It's a demon. It's a very nice demon. I don't think it tells me anything about the world.
I wonder if you spent a little bit more time looking at the details of the miniature, whether I'd love to almost do a second opinion on this if you spent a little bit more time. Yeah, like a second take on that. Not to discredit anything you said, because that is your favorite miniature. It's a weird thing to say, but from seeing the miniature to where you are now, it's helped define you and your tastes and your outlook on the world. Now, my favorite miniature from this collection is the Green Knight, because it's done exactly that. My favorite miniature ever produced by Games Workshop is the Green Knight. You see it as a kid, you're blown away. I don't have that. The older you get, the less you feel. So that's something to look forward to. When I saw the Fulgrim miniature, I don't get that same sense of awe, of being overwhelmed, or that same sense of just I got to paint this, as I did when I was a kid and I saw the Green Knight. So that is the better sculpt. Like you said with the Abaddon, you did the comparison between them. My favorite Abaddon sculpt is the resin one. But as a 40k version, my favorite is the all metal one. That's my favorite one.
Yeah.
But there's a very different criteria between which is the best. My favorite sculpt Games Workshop have ever produced is the Green Knight, because it's wrapped up in nostalgia, it's wrapped up in the sculpt, it's wrapped up as who I was at the time, and it's wrapped up with the paint job. It's that melting pot together that makes this.
But do you think this? We can go around in circles forever. Let us know in the comments.
No, ask. I want to.
Well, I was going to say, do you think this model lets you know what it is and its entire purpose in the world by the model? Because I think Archaon is the best model. Is the best model that they've done. It's not. I don't think it's just my favorite. I think it's the best model they've done.
With Fulgrim, probably not, because I feel like you need some kind of extra context behind what this. I mean, you look at it, I think if you give this to somebody who wasn't familiar with this, they might think it was some kind of Hindu god or some kind of incarnation. But I think you need a little bit more context to describe the world. But I mean, if we're going down that route, if you look at Archaon, he is a barbarian warlord on horse. Could you be saying the same? But how does he describe the world? How does he define the world?
Well, as soon as you think of the Horsemen of the Apocalypse, I think the Archaon conveys.
Right. Okay.
You know that model's purpose in the world. He is the end of the Warhammer world.
Yeah, I'd say that's fair.
We'll never. I don't think we have to agree. I think it's a more interesting for the world for the fact that we don't agree.
No, honestly, I think if we were having this discussion outside of the podcast, we might agree the same thing. It's just way more interesting to argue.
we can't agree professionally.
I'm a very argumentative human being, so this is right up my alley. Yeah, great.
Well, I think rather than bickering for 2 hours online,
Yes.
we'll save it till next time we see each other, and maybe I can have had a look at.
Fisticuffs.
Yeah, exactly. Solve it with love and hate.
Yeah.
Like maybe I can have had a look at the Fulgrim model to give a truer, because I've got 5 of the Archeon model for various things, and like I don't own any of the Fulgrims, so maybe I can have had a look at it in depth and give a truer opinion.
Yeah, objectively, which is the better? Anyway, yes, we've talked ourselves around in circles. We have agreed on what is the pinnacle of the Warhammer Citadel collection. Now it's your turn. Put in the comments down below what your top 10 sculpts are, if you have the energy, if you can summon the energy to do so. Or you could put up your own selections on social media with the hashtag HobbyHammer. And for next issue, we'll have to dream something up equally as hopefully divisive in the community. Let's hear what you think. Max, is there anything
of the Warhammer world?
Destria, yeah, Destria Gate. Yeah, which is your favorite horse?
We're not doing
okay,
that.
that'll be the next issue. What's your favorite type of horse in Warhammer lore?
We're not doing that. And we'll see. We go in. We'll see everyone next time.
Yes.
See ya. Right, so we're back just for a post-credits chat, because we carried on talking about this for the next 15 minutes after, and so I stopped us halfway through the conversation and thought we should just record this and our reasons for our thought process on the best models. So, Miles, you were saying about tanks, and you really wanted to include some tanks.
Yeah, I'm not much of a treadhead, and I thought, along similar lines of being like feats of engineering, the first Baneblade kit was the first mass-manufactured big plastic kit like that Warhammer had done. The Lehman Russ is such an iconic kit, and I wanted to include maybe like a Warlord Titan or a Reaver Titan, because they are phenomenal kits, absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah.
And I noticed like a lot of our choices are just like small miniatures, individual pieces like that, rather than sort of like a Lehman Russ is rather faceless. You know, it's a Lehman Russ could be plural.
Yeah, so it's one of them things that I think they can be iconic in the same way some other ones on the list were iconic. Even the Dreadnought, but as an actual good model piece, I didn't think any of them made the cut. Like a Lehman Russ is, although it's iconically Warhammer, is as good a model to me as a bolt action Panther or whatever.
It's any different from like an Airfix kit.
Yeah, Sharp Lines box that might be, it's designed really well, and I think it could go on potentially on like coolest models of all time list. But as a best like model of all time, best model of all time in our categories of like, we've been arguing about like the flow of pieces and stuff. They don't contain any of that.
I'm just sad we didn't get a tank of some variety in there.
Yeah, like potentially
some kind of armor.
Yeah, but then there's also so many that could go in there as like the Baneblade,
or like a Tau Barracuda.
It's really big. Yeah, even a Tau battlesuit is very Tau as well. I know it's like Asian influenced, but it's quite a cool model. There's a good number of, like, at one point I wanted to put Lord Solar Macarius in there, but because it's a classic sort of piece.
You know, funny you should say that. So I put a couple of choices in there, like the Marlus Darkblade collector's edition, like the limited edition one on foot, and the Sergeant Centurius, the first Legion of the Damned miniature. The dude,
because I know you've got it somewhere.
The dude with the, hold on. This dude.
Right, okay.
Yeah. I remember lusting after that miniature so much as a kid. And I remember it going on eBay for £100. Like £100 on a single miniature. My God, £100 for that. I think I'll never be able to afford that.
Was that ages ago or near
Oh
now?
yeah, it was that like you could get them for like 20, 30 quid now. It's not tremendously expensive.
But
I guess like separating out. I mean, I guess what's the point of this exercise? Like, what was the is it the best miniatures we're doing? Is it our favorite miniatures? Is it the
potentially.
what have we just done?
I was approaching it as best, and then allowed myself a ridiculous choice in the dwarfs, which I just shouldn't have done. Do you know, like, as we've gone through the list, all my other choices, I'd stand by as being able to make at least a reasonable argument for them being.
You
the
need
best
that though,
miniatures.
right? Because
it's a different list,
best
though. It's a different
or,
list. Because I quite
best
happily.
or favorite or great miniatures. It's not like we have any empirical evidence. It's not like on a scorecard. Okay, let's put into chat GTP. What are the top 10 sculpts empirically created by Games Workshop? Okay.
Does that actually come up with a proper answer?
Let's find out. Chat GPT. Okay, it gives some sort of like BS explanation. As of my knowledge, September 2020, I don't have access to real-time data or ability to provide. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, however, as the time, some highly regarded models. No, that's not what I asked. No.
Well, what does it say?
I
What
asked
does it say?
what were.
Does it come up Archaon on Horse
are
for
the
number
best,
one?
not
And that's why you're not
the
reading it
most highly guarded.
You can't have a conversation with it. That's the only problem. You can't shout at it.
Determining the best sculpt's inherently subjective. Okay, so the first 10 spat out. Magnus the Red, the plastic version. Mortarion, the plastic version. Gilliman, plastic version. Archaon, the Ever-Chosen, a massive model.
Oh, not
big plastic
not
one.
Archaon
There,
on
boo.
Horse.
Ariel, the Ever Queen. So one of your choices, ChatGPT agrees with. Scarbrand, Nagash. So this is. It hasn't chosen the best.
It's just the big model.
It's chosen the biggest. Belisarius Call, Arch Revenant, Tech Priest Dominus.
Yeah, well, so I did actually think about, do I want to put in. So Archaon and Horse being there, does it stand up till now? Because they've released a new model. Is the new model better? And I actually came down to, I don't think it is. Like, I think the newer Archaon is just like size for the sake of it, rather than actually adding to what that model is and is trying to be.
It's the same thing as Ariel, right?
Well, I really like
it's too much.
Like the actual.
Is it Ariel or Ariel?
Ariel, the ever. Let's go with Ariel, or whichever one we say at the time. I think that actual. Do you know, like, as a female sorceress, I think that is pretty transcendent of any other model that they've got. Like, ignoring the bug, wings, whatever, but the robes around it, and the actual. I was going to say person form of it.
ChatGPT doesn't do anything for us. Perhaps that should be our next episode. Like, who would win in a fight between
ChatGPT and
who would win in a fight between all 20 Primarchs? I want you to theory hammer them all out in terms of lore and in-game ability. Okay, that's our next episode.
Not just asking ChatGPT that. It's a very short
That's our
episode.
low effort. Yeah. There you go. Get excited for that one.
Yeah,
when we
all
piss
the
around the ChatGPT. Yeah.
He's, as well, what you said about the Legion of the Damned model being 100 quid and unaffordable.
Mm-hmm.
One of the models that I really want to paint, but won't be able to, Leopold the Black, is currently going for 300 quid on eBay. £300.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's hard to justify that. No.
Jeez, Louis. I bought one when they first. No, not this price, but when they first came out.
Did you paint it?
No, I haven't. I've been too intimidated to paint it.
Really?
I've been waiting to develop my skills enough to tackle it.
So you, as a now professional painter, and host of
Yep.
the HobbyHammer podcast, which is obviously big rep,
Uh-huh.
is you still don't feel
Well,
yourself
I still
like
don't feel
good
worthy enough to tackle it. Yeah.
Really?
It's just that detailed, it's that intimate, and I'll have one go at it, and that's it. If I mess it up, I'm not going to pay 300 quid for a new one.
Crazy to get hold of, which is why I've not
Yeah,
painted one. I've got one.
I'm not paying 300 quid for it. Yeah, that's the thing, right? You get one shot at it, and that's it.
Yeah.
Done and dusted. Otherwise.
Yeah, is there anything more you want to add as an addendum than us babbling about God? Where did we go so wrong?
We'll probably come up with something afterwards when we're just sort of like winding down, and we'll come back on. But nothing springs to mind right now.